Hello, I'm Hallow. I'm a Beastieball speedrunner and player and PvPer and everything else. This is my, however oftenly, series of reviewing patch notes whenever there's a new milestone update for Beastieball in early access. And we got one just today. This one's one I've been excited for a long time. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that's been added that we've been waiting on for a long time. And of course some balance changes, which I'm going to very much be going over. Let's get right into it. So first of all, it's noted as their biggest content update, which I think it probably is, honestly. There's a whole bunch of new, there's a whole new area we're going to be getting into. That's the bonus dungeon, as Greg calls it here. But other than that, gosh, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this in particular. That's going to be a good time. Trading is huge. We'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, let's start from the beginning. We have some Beastie art updates. We have animations complete for Demolipede, some poses for Magpike. I'm assuming that means not animations yet. Calcroach and Debugly have their animations complete. Bealb has its animation complete. Froof has its poses cleaned up. So I'm guessing still no animation there quite yet. Bendiva has poses and animation added. Gremler has animation complete, and a poser has animation complete. Okay, Bendiva's is not noted as complete, which is interesting. So I'm curious if there's going to be a little more added, but with that said, okay. The number of Beasties marked as complete has gone to 77. A lot of other progress was made behind the scenes that wasn't quite enough to manifest into an in-game update yet. Okay. I wonder if that means that we're going to be getting some before the next milestone, but it'll certainly be getting there eventually, for sure. Just to pop briefly into the game, since I do have that open, sort of outside the new area right now, and we can see like a whole bunch of the animations here. If I position the beasties in a spot where you can actually look at them. There we go. Wonder if there's going to be new music here. It's listed as a new area. Oh, okay, we got the Domain Park music. But a whole bunch of new animations here. Gosh, I love... Gremler is so creature now. Bealb is just sort of hanging out. Debugly... Oh, this one's awesome. It's like they're typing. Because they're the computer beastie. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's awesome. A poser being intimidating and such. Bendiva just striking a whole lot of poses. I love this. This is so awesome. I don't have the others on my team right now. Maybe I'll pull them up in a bit. But, like, fantastic start here. Huge fan of this. New stuff. So, if I actually... Everything's computer. Exactly. Computer. Patch notes back on. New stuff. Probably the largest single edition of content will make to the game for all of early access. A significant new area, yep. Entire new set of hangouts, that's with Dominic, I believe. And some major headline features we thought we'd save for 1.0. Wow, okay. So yeah, trading is here earlier than they expected it to be, I guess. You can trade beasties on Sportnet. This is something I probably won't, like, do super often because I like finding my own, but they retain their history, remember their original coach, and old friends if returned. That's awesome. This is obviously a huge feature for any, like, creature collector with multiplayer connectivity, and I'm super excited to see this. We have the trans rights fetch them in the patch notes, because of course we have to. Naturally. New area, the Under Construct Zone. All new bonus dungeon can be found in GeoCity with new puzzle mechanics. That is, of course, this spot, which we'll be exploring a little bit later. and I'm excited about it. I've obviously figured out how to get up here in the first place, and basically what happens is these like girders get lifted up and down by the cranes when you hit levers. It's super cool. Dominic Hangouts are here. If I can pop the patch notes back up. There are a few surprises in his Hangouts that we think players will enjoy, including those more interested in gameplay than story. So I would not be surprised if there's like a rematch in here, because that's kind of his personality. Like he's just about the sports really, but I'm excited to see like more of him outside of like just his fighting, and I assume we're gonna get a little bit of that. There is a new soundtrack. Oh, let's go find that and put that on. Goofy versus music added for certain matches that occur over the course of the main story. That'll be the sponsor match, or not the sponsor matches. The matches the Sports King has you play with Barnes. So let's go find that real quick. Music. Where are we? Need to find it. Game design is my passion. Alright, this is going to make reviewing the patch notes real hard. This is going to make reviewing the patch notes real hard, but we'll try it. Environmental improvements. GeoCity is now populated with crowds. Areas around GeoCity have been spruced up and redecorated, which I'm excited about. There's a whole lot more decoration, making the city feel more full of stuff. Updated ambiences and sounds. A small extra area and encounter have been added somewhere in the city. Huh. So we're gonna have to go find that. I'm excited for that. New player customization options. Added olive skin tone options to the character creator. 2 new headscarves and 1 new hairstyle available by default, and 1 new outfit available in GeoCity. Big fan of seeing like more skin tones, more options for people to customize their character and represent themselves like right off the bat. That's awesome. Beastie Analytics in Sportnet, so we can track basically a whole bunch of stats that were previously only available to the devs and whatever they released to us just in the game. It's kind of like how Champions, if anyone has played Pokemon Champions, it's kind of like how you can view usage stats and stuff in there. And also has historic data for all of the past Big Moons, which is awesome. I love that this is just in the game and we don't have to go anywhere externally. Big fan. Leaderboards in Sportnet to check Bash results so we don't have to see a Steam post every time. Some changes to rank for Big Moon Bash. You get a little more rank meter from losing. You get you don't rank up quite as quickly if you're winning all of your matches, so that basically the amount of time you have to play to get to 5 stars is now a little more normalized between the top players and the bottom players. So yeah, Bash scores become a fairer comparison point for all players, which I am a big fan of, because sometimes you could go like close to undefeated, but someone who went like if you go like 15-2, someone who went like 17-5 could have a higher Bash score than you, and that was always a little weird. Modded text. You can now mod all text in the game. Oh dear, that's exciting. There were already ways to do that, to be fair, but that's exciting. The fact that like we're gonna be able to mod a whole lot of stuff and eventually build like full custom campaigns, I think, and that's really exciting for like the longevity of the game and people's ability to like build their own games from it. And the fact that all of this is officially supported is, of course, just incredible. I've just about had it with this music. I don't think I can do this anymore. Great time. Not the vibe for reading off patch notes. Alright. Visual indicator for active sprays and recent radar. That's a great quality of life change, so you can see when you have one of those things up. You can delete tags from the list of options when adding a tag to a beastie. Okay, fewer incidental interactions which can happen with your beasties under certain conditions. I'm assuming that's just like the little speech bubbles that pop up above your beasties sometimes. So just like they have something they want to investigate or communicate to you about, such as like when the first time, say a ball, you can, I suppose you can do that, Rio. Coaches you befriend now each have 2 additional plays they can teach at max hearts. That's exciting. I'm always glad to see more options for getting plays that aren't necessarily SP. I don't know off the top of my head what those are, but that's exciting. Overhauled playbook and encounter designs across the game to account for balance changes and new traits, including especially for procedurally generated teams. There are a whole bunch of balance changes we'll get to. First of all, though, we have the Grassroots League, which is something they announced a bit ago. Basically, this is a way for them to make tournaments a little bit more official. Most tournaments are all fan-run. I often have a hand in those. You'll occasionally see me posting about streaming like a heat wave or something else. And now there are some prizes for some of those. I won't get into that too much. You can go look at the Steam posts about it if you want to see that, because I'm mostly here for the update. There's a bash upcoming with a bunch of the GeoCity beasties. And then, of course, we have the balance changes. A minimal set of changes meant to address only a few key standout points. First of all, Weepy. A beastie overcome with Weepy now loses 50 stamina down from 100. I haven't played with this one a lot yet, but Weepy is a feeling that has been very, very prominent in the meta, especially with a lot of prominent mind-attacking beasties liking to use Stinger to slow down like the opponent's offense. But the 100 damage has always been quite punishing, as Greg says here. Can make the afflicted player feel many lines are closed off to them and their agency is reduced to an unfun level. This keeps Weepy as a big potential threat, but afflicted players have a bit more options in regards to whether they choose to take the damage and continue their offense versus pivoting out to conserve their bench health. I think there are positives and negatives to this change. I think sometimes letting your beastie drain was somewhat more useful, but I think against certain teams, like, this just sort of didn't really work out. Like the 100 stamina thing. I think this is probably overall going to be a good change. I'm still a little worried that Weepy overall shuts down a lot of team strategies quite effectively, especially with how prominent it is in the meta, but we'll see if the fact that it's only 50 stamina now makes it maybe slightly less desirable and people start gravitating towards other attacks, some of those mind attackers which run telekinesis. We'll see. Rally, this is a big one. Rally now boosts the damage of only one team at a time, basically meaning that if you score a point with a rally boosted attack, you don't get the boost on the subsequent serve, which means that it is a lot less oppressive on serves. You aren't going to be taking like 60 damage from a super commit or a burnout. Or not a burnout, an explosive spirit. We'll get to that in a bit. Your subsequent serve can't be boosted by rally, reduces the ability of the field effect to snowball damage for a team already in advantage. Overall, big fan of this change. It's a little bit, like, weird and quirky, but it's going to be good for the PvP balance of the game, which is what we care about here. Traits. Enchanter is a new trait given to Conjar in place of Precise. Net boosted attacks make the target one shook. This is a very powerful trait. With especially things like Cut Shot. Conjar is now going to, like, very much limit... It's going to be able to very much limit the opponent's options just based on where it attacks, in addition to all of the support play disruption it can already do. So I'm interested to see how this turns out. What I'm a little more worried about is the fact that Conjurer does get Trait Dance, and so can pass this to another Beastie, which some people I know were messing around with in Experimental. I think it doesn't seem like it's going to be too threatening, which is good, because if it was too threatening with Trait Dance, I think we would have really found out about it. But still, exciting to see Condor get a new option, because I feel like Precise wasn't really used, especially since, like, Watchtower was nerfed in the previous Milestone update. And that means there's less redirection going around. So, overall, good change here. Fearless has been given to a Beastie again, and also modified. This used to be immune to Nervous, Shook, and Stress. It is now immune to Nervous and doesn't experience negative effects from their own attacks. Daredillo gained this in place of Self-Assured, which never really saw much use at all, because the inability to boost a Daredillo with Self-Assured meant that it wasn't really as much of an offensive threat as you often wanted it to be, and it had a lot of trouble competing with Acrobat Daredillo, because its bulk just left so much to be desired. Their offense was basically a little too strong, Greg is saying. They're tweaking some things in Daredillo's kit to mitigate the power of Acrobat and changing Self-Assured to something which enables their offense just a little bit more effectively to compensate. Daredillo is still going to be a very, very good Beastie. I don't think that's going to change here because Acrobat itself hasn't been changed. So we will, at least I'm pretty sure it hasn't been changed. We'll scroll down. But yeah, I mean, very powerful trait, going to remain as such for the foreseeable future. And this trait is exciting for a modding project I'm working on, which I won't say that much about, so we'll get to that. Power Up High Spirits and Full Focus have been reverted back to plus 50% damage when stamina is below 34. It's been the flat 15 for a while now. The goal at the time was to normalize the power levels of the 3 starters by increasing the value of the damage boost for weaker hitters while reducing its value on Cast Elite. But it really didn't have the intended effect. Cast Elite was still just as good. Hopper and Bandicraft actually struggled more with this change. So we're rolling it back, which I think is good. I think flat damage increases are kind of not the way to go in most cases. I'm still not sure how I feel about Rally at plus 20. We'll see. But yeah, they're tweaking some stuff in other ways, which we will get to because there are some very important changes in there. But overall, I think we've determined that, especially with Hopra's like super commit getting nerfed from 100 to 95 in the previous Milestone, I think that going back to the plus 50% is overall going to be good. It's going to be easier for math, especially because I think a big part of PvP in this game is being able to do math on the fly and not having to subtract stuff and then re-add it. Makes it so much easier to just calculate how much damage something is going to do after a boost or two. Confident has been modified in exchange for Supalero losing High Five, which we'll see in a bit. Confident now gets plus 1 body power and plus 1 to all defenses when tagged in. Yeah, recently gained some traction. Some is a strong way, weak way to put it. Using High Five in tandem with Confident to efficiently cast boosts. It was deemed a little too strong by some players. But outside of it, Supalero wasn't getting much use with Confident, so we're taking High Five away, making them more competent. And yeah, overall, I think this is going to be a good change. I think Supalero is going to be very tanky on either set now. And honestly, I think both are going to be good. Some people are saying that Confident Supalero is maybe too strong. still, but I think that there are a lot of ways to mitigate boosts at the moment, so I think this is going to put it in a pretty good spot to do with balance. Slippery has lost its damage reduction. This was the subject of much testing and experimental. And there are some very significant changes to Gremler's playset, which we'll see in a bit. All the way back in June 2025, so yeah, over a year ago, Gremler lost some amount of damage, but has not really been seen with Slippery since then. So we're seeing the damage back, which I think is overall a good thing. I'm excited to see Slippery be useful outside of the nettle spamming applications that so frequently just plagued teams with 8 wipes and such. Momentum was added to Blitzswift, momentum being the trait that Grow Iron has had for a while, where you get 1.3 times damage if you have shifted this turn. So now they have another way to play that makes a whole bunch of their motion-based moves such as Net Rush, Cover, Whoosh. It gets pretty much every movement tool that you could ask for. And now having a trait that doesn't make that obsolete means that this thing can deal a lot more damage. I think Jet is still going to be really fantastic for utility, but Momentum is now going to allow Blitzswift to do a lot more damage, which is pretty exciting, I'm not going to lie. We'll see how that goes. I'm a little worried that it might be a little too strong. It probably won't be realistically, because I don't think it's going to be doing more damage than a Castle Elite, but this thing is going to be a significant threat offensively, if not defensively, because its defenses are still pretty paper thin. Galaxy's Reign sees a buff, and it now activates when receiving any attack, which is good, because Silas almost never received mind attacks ever. And this allows Galaxy Brain to be useful and relevant in the meta. There's a reason to use it over Anticipation now. I still think Anticipation is going to be by far the more used trait on Silas, because it makes it actually able to survive some body hits and strong spirit hits and such. Still challenging to keep a Silas healthy on the field long enough to get the benefit of this trait, so its gameplay ought to be interesting. Yeah, overall, great change here, I think. I'm excited about this one. New plays, we have a bunch of them. First up is Kick. It is a body attack, 70 power, initially 75 in experimental, but then was toned back a little bit. Always targets the back row, so it's a sideways back row only move. And you can use it without volleying, so it's sort of like if you take a soccer ball that's flying at you and kick it back over the net. Gained by a bunch of beasties with feet, I suppose, in Castle Guru Depositor, Lunoptera, Magpie and Maraptor, and Goofster. It's always exciting to see more plays that can be used without volleying. I think that they are hard to balance because they need to have some major downside, such as Desperate Force having Stressed, and now this one being back row only, which is notoriously difficult to make work, especially in PvP. But having plays like this means that you can focus on really support play-focused strategies without having to necessarily block all the time, which is kind of exciting. Clicking 2 support plays in a turn is always very powerful, as supports can be some of the strongest plays in the game a lot of the time. Fun use cases, but mostly here to fill what we saw as gap in flavor. Yes, I'm a big fan of it. I think that, especially, the fact that Castle Elite didn't have a move like this was kind of surprising. I'm going to take a drink of water because I've been yapping. But yeah, onto more of that. We have Flying Kick, which is given to Castle Elite and Castle Elite alone. Castle Elite has been the most lacking in playstyle that sets them apart from other beasties, and that's been reflected by their lack of a signature play. Flying Kick is our answer to that. Gives Castlete a completely unique way to attack, but still feels very uniquely Castlete. So what happens here is you can use this when the ally has the ball. So it's sort of like, instead of volleying, you can think of your ally as sort of a T. Castlete will move next to them and attack while their ally has the ball. Yes, you can serve with this when Castlete is not in the serving slot, which is very fascinating. You notably cannot use it when Castlete has the ball, so you're often going to want to run both this and another attack, such as Thump. I'm excited to mess around with this. It could be interesting in speedruns. I have yet to test anything out, but that's going to be what today is for later on. Because it always moves Castlete to its allies' row, it's inherently weak to sideways offense pressure, but when used in tandem with other attacks, it means Castlete can just about always get a strong hit, no matter where they are or who receives the attack. So yeah, overall, quite exciting. My nose is really itchy right now. But yeah, it's a super flavorful play. I think it's going to be... I do worry it's going to be a little bit hard for casual players to wrap their head around. I think that the savvy ones will immediately latch onto this and be like, whoa, this is really cool, and start using it. But overall, yeah, I'm excited about this. This is just fun. Castlete is one of my favorite beasties, in part because it's been the speedrun beastie for so long, and I'm excited to see it get some love in the flavor department, because it felt very similar in a lot of cases to some other beasties, which we'll get into a little bit later when we get to the playset changes. Burnout has been renamed to Explosive Spirit. The 110 power spirit power move, which lowers your spirit power by 2 stages. I think the name's a little clunky. I came up with an alternative one called Outburst, which I think is pretty good, but we'll see. This is, to be fair, also very good. It says basically the same thing, just in more words, which is, I mean, for a 110 power play, it doesn't really feel that bad. But either way, it's been renamed because we have added a new Burnout, which is a spirit attack, 100 base power, and minus 15 stamina, learned by Daredevil, Scaldra, and Fruitbox. This is a new iteration of Burnout that is better matched to Daredevil's particular kit. In other words, they are nerfing Daredevil's ability to output ludicrous amounts of damage by giving it a move that is 100 power rather than 110, because the 110 power move in combination with Acrobat and Dodge Roll was just really quite overwhelming in the meta. New Plague, Squeeze. This is a support play. Can target allies or opponents and advances target's feelings by 1 turn. Learned by Diggum, Dugout, and Mystic, Mudsley, Fruitfolks, and Hydro. This is a very interesting play. Greg specifically calls it strange, which is true. Surprising diversity of use cases that we want to see players mess with. It can function as somewhat of a chant for some feelings, but can also, like, advance sweaty turns, which is, I think, probably the scariest application of it, and probably the one that's going to see the most use in PvP by far. Just being able to take a sweaty turn immediately and get the damage from that is very threatening. Initially this play was also on Scaldra, and I believe people in Experimental found some setups to basically instantly wipe something, which was kinda wild. Yeah. They comment, can function as an insidious passive aggression tool, using more damage out of sweaty opponents or pushing stacks of weepy. We will see how this turns out in the meta. I think people weren't, like, super abusing it once it got taken off of Scaldra, but I think we were all also focusing on other things. Either way, it's an exciting addition to the game. I like the fact that, some of these beasties now have a way to, like, help out their allies in some cases. Like, they can all remove Shook from an ally now. I suppose that doesn't really change much for Dig 'em and Dugout, other than, like, advancing Sweaty on opponents, because they already had Chant. But Mudsley loves this for dealing more sweat damage. Mystic loves this next to Dispel, and also for all of the different feelings it can induce. It's exciting. I love seeing new tools added that are interesting and unique. We'll see how much it comes to be relevant in the meta. I expect we'll see it certainly on, like, Mudsley teams. Hydrolm has definitely also used it. I've seen some people running it on Hydrolm. I haven't studied that to figure out what the actual use case is yet, but we'll see how it develops. Stretch has been added as a support play, restoring 10 stamina and feeling 1 jazzed, given to a bunch of body beasties here. You could use that to put opponents to sleep a turn early. Very true. I'm not sure how many places that's actually irrelevant because of the moves, the specific moves that apply stress. I could see it putting yourself to sleep a turn early, thus letting you attack later, which is interesting. Oh yeah, Frazzle, you can get the instant tired off with Frazzle, that is fair. Either way, Stretch added. Restore 10 stamina, feel 1 jazzed. Cast Leap or Slide and Musclebound, Hydrolm Surveys. It's a sort of obvious basic support action which fits with many beasties. We see it as a corollary with Flex, which sacrifices ramping over time for a more body thematic self-care. Yeah, big fan of this for the flavor. It was determined basically that Cast Leap with Flying Kick could actually be way too much of a threat with Flex. So Stretch was added so that they can't stack boosts in the same turn. And we'll see that in the moveset changes in a bit. Catwalk added. Bendiva lost a couple tools, which we'll get to in a bit. This is in exchange for that. Shifts the user forward if it does shift the user forward. Nearest opponent loses 1 to all defenses. It has been given to Bendiva, and then the 2 cats and Surveys and Gremlin. A very flavorful little move. Obviously very powerful on Thief Bendiva in particular, as they're able to move to the front, take the ball, and then get a dump off. Which is somewhat cool for Bendiva users. Bendiva, again, did lose some other tools, so we'll get to that. But I can definitely see Gremlin also using this, especially with Slippery getting a boost back. I think Surveys is probably going to still keep running basically the same sets it always has, because Inspiring Defense is just a little too necessary on it. But it's fun to just see a little bit more flavor here and there, and I'm excited to use this on some modded beasties. High Slam has been buffed to 110 power, always targets straight ahead, but can no longer hit without volleying. Bless me. High Slam was a move that really didn't see all that much use. On the beasties that wanted to use it, they'd often just use Ricochet instead, or they'd be blocking, so High Slam wasn't necessary. So this just gives a higher power option to a bunch of beasties which really didn't have a move that had this level of power, such as Boldler, Shloom not running ultimate attack. Our Mantis in particular, I think, is going to really appreciate this. And yeah, overall, just a little bit of a slot in the body playset that I think needed filling, which is a good change, especially now that Kick has been added for the hit without volleying niche. Tracker now ignores block. Small and unflashy change means Tracker has additional utility to reduce opponent action economy and force them to volley. This is a good addition to a play that I feel like has been overshadowed for a long time by how good Twist is. Because often if you click Tracker into something, either it used to get blocked and thus not really prevent the Beastie you wanted to from attacking, or they just volley and let their ally attack. Which is still, to be fair, the best way to play around it. But now it's a lot more effective against Beasties that are sitting next to supports. Thought there ought to be more ways to mitigate it for teams that want to slow the game down, which I think is a good thing. Mid-range and slower teams have always had a little bit of trouble, especially recently, keeping up with hyper-offense. So, good change. Precision Strike now ignores shields and boosts. I don't think it cared about boosts in the first place, but it's nice to specify that. It's certainly going to be more useful now, because it's slightly more useful, at least, because of the ignoring shield part. I think it was already a fairly good move on things like Dig'em and Beetleback, but certainly useful. Inspired Defense finally gets a change to make it identical to Shield in terms of the amount of Angry, so that Surveys doesn't have like this defining strength over other attackers, which I think is a good change. And that is all for the actual mechanics changes. On to just the playset and such changes. Kitchik, Ostracite, and Castleite have learned Tough Front, lost Shake Off and Flex in addition to the Flying Kick change, and most importantly have lost Launch. Launch on this Beastie has been a constant fixation among top-level players for a while, with it serving as a high benchmark for offensive power and utility. We love the power of this play and don't see it looking too overtuned on other Beasties as much as it has been on Castleite, so we're trying out giving it a more unique and technical shift attack in Flying Kick. And because of the addition of Flying Kick, they wanted to look at different options for support plays that fit better with the new playstyle. This change is very impactful in both PvP and speedruns, because Launch, Thump, Shield was a fantastic set for both of those applications. It was pretty much the de facto Castleite set on almost every team in PvP. Sometimes you'd spec Demolish over Thump, but other than that, you were running those three moves. For speedruns, we relied very heavily on Castleite's ability to get itself to the net on serve, so I have a lot of work to do. We're going to start on some of that after I go over the patch notes, of course, but there are a lot of speedrun routes which broke due to this change, but overall, I think it was necessary, and I think Flying Kick is overall a move that is going to make the game feel much cooler to play for a first-time casual player. So I'm not upset about it. With that said, still, you know, there's a lot to be done. I think it's interesting because this will actually set the starters a little bit closer together in terms of their ability to speedrun, so there's a chance that starter races might be back on the menu, whereas before Castleite was just so much faster than the other two that it wasn't really gonna ever be, like, close between the three. Castleite would always have a couple minutes of edge, at least. But yeah, I'm overall excited for this change beyond the fact that it means I have a lot of work to do. Rookie and Garud have lost Bump because they can kick. Shugo, Supasum, and Supalero lost High Five, also lost Deep Breath, interestingly enough. I think that's a new one. Gained Quick Breath instead, which is the defense play rather than the support play. This means that it's going to be a bit harder for a Supalero to keep itself healthy unless it's Forager quick tagging out. This is going to be interesting for speedruns, because Deep Breath has actually made Dominic and Marlin quite difficult in both casual play and speedruns. So I'm interested to see how the reduced healing will potentially make those fights a little bit easier, especially for the body route, the Cathlete runs, and potentially Whiplash runs for any percent in particular, and maybe for other categories as well. We'll see how the Whiplash route develops. But yeah, I mean, 20 stamina as opposed to 30 is a significant change, but they do gain the ability to restore on defense if they so desire. Which I think works better with Confident, to be fair. So that'll be kind of nice for them. Daredillo loses access to Explosive Spirit, as I mentioned. Waddle has seen another major moveset change. It has gained Net Rush to be able to get itself to the net for that defense boost. Also learned Fallback, so it can get itself to the back for some offense boosts, and Hum to let it boost itself up. So a few tools for both defensive and offensive Waddle here. It has lost Beginner Effort, which is interesting, lost Raw Fury and Tough Rent, so it's actually going to have a lot less attacking options now, which is interesting. I am interested to see why it has lost Beginner Effort. Let's actually look that up right now. I'm gonna hop into the Beastiepedia real quick and see if it gained anything in regard to that. Nope, it just has very few attacks now. Let's just pop that over to demonstrate. It now learns Careful Shot at level 1, Flight, Tornado Ball, Bring the Heat, and Toppler. So really very few options for actually attacking with Waddle, which I think is, to be fair, somewhat in flavor. But I do wonder if it's going to make... I mean, not that Beginner Effort was ever really used, but Raw Fury was very occasionally used by, I think, myself and only myself on one particular rally team I built once. But overall, I mean, offensive is always going to pretty much run Bring the Heat, and defensive is always pretty much going to run Tornado Ball or Careful Shot, so, you know, overall, I think this is fine. Tordanker and its accompanying line have regained Daring Pass, which is exciting. I think it's very in flavor for that beastie. And having a bulky beastie learning it again is interesting, especially if it's one that doesn't use spirit attacks itself, as opposed to, say, Hopra. Helps diversify the beasties that work together on spirit-focused teams. And gives Tordanker the unique role as the sole bulky Daring Passer. Gremler has seen a whole bunch of changes. It has lost a bunch of mind power. Oh my word. Okay. There's a lot that's changed here. Lost a bunch of mind power to go along with the slippery change for some reasons which we'll get to in a bit. Changed the defenses so that the body defense is worse instead of the mind defense, which I think is probably good because this makes it better into Precise, but worse into, say, True Strike and Rocket. And makes sense, I think, with also just how generally skinny Gremler is. Like, it does not look like it's a physically bulky beastie. Overall, though, its bulk has... I think its bulk has overall decreased by 1 point here. Interested in making Slippery's gameplay effective and fun in a way it hasn't been since its nerf last year. Its greatest advantage is how it enables Gremler to use extra support actions, so the support action pool has to be carefully curated, and Nettle is one of the best in the game, so it follows that it feels oppressive on Gremler. Basically, the strategy here was you put Gremler next to a Collidarn, and you can click Nettle 3 times in a turn, or 2 times in a turn and attack, and it's very powerful. Trying out what Gremler is like without Nettle, but with new plays that can fill similar gaps or expand Gremler's options in other directions, gaining Rain and Goo Goo Eyes. Rain obviously being able to do some of what Nettle did before, 10 damage instead of 20, and also heal up Gremler somewhat, which I think will be... I don't know if it'll see much use on Adaptation Gremler in particular. Goo Goo Eyes it will definitely appreciate now that it has such little body defense. Also lost Spirit Defense, which is interesting, because Gremler was previously able to be actually quite Spirit OP. So, yeah, Raw Fury also getting a little better into it. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. I think Gremler always has the problem of being incredibly frail, and that holds it back, especially like Adaptation Gremler in a lot of cases. But Adaptation Intangible, this might be a change to specifically address Adaptation Intangible, actually, and allow True Strike to basically punch through that wall for mono body offensive teams. Because when you put Gremler next to a Mystic, both of them are immune to body attacks other than True Strike, so that might be why that change has been made. Adjusted their stats in a few key ways. Their Mind Power is lower, but the damage is still higher than what it was with Slippery previously. That was, again, due to Gremler being put next to Kaleidarn and taking 2 tactical passes and dealing a whole lot of damage. We've made them overall more bulky. Have you? It lost overall... Okay, I think... Actually, yes, it has gained, I believe... Yeah, it's gained 9 defense points now that I do the math correctly. Changed how their defenses are allocated so that Mind is their best and Body their worst. 4+ years ago, we created Gremler with a Mind weakness to exacerbate their weakness into sideways offense. With the many shifts and changes since then, this matchup theory proved to be mostly irrelevant. We think it makes more sense for the smartest beastie who is bullied by a poser to excel in mind and be fragile in body. Makes sense. I like the flavor here. I like that we're still thinking about flavor and how beasties are balanced, while still also thinking about mechanics. Good stuff. Bendiva has lost Net Rush, which is a big one. Also lost Spitball, gained Heartbreaker, and of course gained Catwalk, which we mentioned earlier. Has always been intentionally designed around easily getting the net and hitting dumps, making them a frail but scary point scorer. Over the past couple milestones, more players have turned their attention to it, and we've seen them optimize more often, positioned to get a quick and surprising checkmate that's very hard to react to. That being switching in with a net rush dumped Bendiva means that whichever slot you're in, you could previously get a boosted dump off and often just... Yeah, checkmate the opponent into scoring a point immediately. They want Bendiva to still succeed with this linear and aggressive style, but we're tweaking their kit so that they should have to respect their opponents in more scenarios, as any class can and should. Net Rush and Thief is a combo that gave Bendiva too much versatility, and Spitball is one of the underappreciated, that's not true, best disruption plays in the game. Together, both let Bendiva shut down many opponent lines and mitigate a lot of their risk. Heartbreaker, I think, is a great add. Feels very in theme with Bendiva in particular. Can pair well with Majesty, meaning you don't have to invest maybe quite as much in Spirit Bulk while still, like, mitigating how much damage your Spirit attacking opponents can do. And overall, just a good option to fill the void of Spitball being lost. New additions of Heartbreaker and Catwalk introduce some fun new synergies in their place. And lastly, Proteus and Hydrome lost Flex and gained Stretch as well. Other fixes and changes. The first one that is big. For Mac players, such as myself, they have moved Mac builds to an older version of Game Maker Studio for this milestone because there has been an issue ongoing for a while with a Game Maker version that meant that the game would crash a lot. I am very glad to see this reverted while Game Maker has still not patched that issue because it is an engine issue, not a Beastieball issue. And they've tried to slap some stuff on top of it to fix those, and it just hasn't worked. So thank you to Greg and Aaron for figuring this out for the time being, and hopefully they get all that patched up. Overall, it sucks that they have to do this, because it's a lot of work for them. Hopefully Game Maker will get on fixing that. Adjusted some Beastie spawn locations in light of the new area, (S) added. Added a new ad to GeoCity after completing the main story. I'm excited to see what that is. Added an end replay button for viewing match replays. This is, low-key, a little bit relevant in speedruns, which is funny. Downloaded away teams, including on pickup ports, can now automatically clean up or fix broken or missing plays, such as the teams are from an older balance patch. That's good, meaning that old away teams will not have Beasties with 2 moves. Fix for a crash or block report, skipping a sports puzzle from a certain dialogue tree route. Okay. Changed how away teams are filtered so that they're much less likely to consecutively see different teams from the same player unless you share the same travel tag. That's good, because previously you'd often just sort of see the same team over and over again, I assume from different times the player sent it out. So overall a good thing to have changed just for the game feel of it all. Increase the hitbox of Beasties when throwing ice cream at them so that players hopefully waste less ice cream. Good change. Fix issues with the back button in the info menu in certain menu states. That might be relevant in speedruns on the Windows version. I don't know if that's exactly what Greg's referring to, but previously, clicking the back button would sort of disable any movement keys you were holding, so you'd have to press them again. And this might be fixing that, so that Windows is finally up to parity with Mac in terms of one very specific trick that we do sometimes in runs. Adjusted emote state and animation such that it's easier to clap repeatedly without emoting if that's the player's intention. Good change. Fixed issue with gamepad D-pad not registering in the custom input edit menu. Okay. Speed and stop and clap sounds from rhythm now slow to half tempo in the post-game victory defeat screens. That's a good change for game feel. I always thought it was weird that they sort of sped up whenever you won something. Fixed visual issues when a point is scored with an attack that deals 0 damage. Okay. Just little bugs. Mouse cursor visibility settings. AI opponents visibly bouncing during AI processing in certain situations. That's the thing where they sometimes vibrate, I think. An extra indicator at the end of expeditions explaining how beasties that don't participate in the final match don't earn a summon marking. Makes sense. Improve some UI elements. Saved replays for certain special match types, including online games, now remember which port they were played on. That's fun! So we now don't just see most, if not all, replays taking place in the Rutile Stadium. That's a good change. Possible to accidentally or automatically skip defense when inspecting beasties at certain positions and at a certain camera angle. Okay, that's very specific. Fixed interaction between Tool and Haunted. Okay. Collider on beach houses, as those in Calico. Just a 3D thing. Special conditions to certain screens with ball throwing puzzles to make your beasties not to volley or intercept thrown balls. That's super good. That was a big issue, especially in like Domain Park and speedruns and Bingo. So I'm a fan of that, so that they don't get in the way of you trying to solve an overworld puzzle. Improve the appearance and position of the crown over a Captain Beastie in Captain's mode. The position of Yearnings in Sport UI, okay. Improved the AI's ability to utilize Torch Pass. That's good. I feel like it almost never clicked it at a useful time. That's good. Fixed incorrect map text for the Jim Gold sponsorship quests. Little bug fixes. Menu selection on the title screen such that your selection can loop from top to bottom, as is possible in most other menus. Okay. Incorrect message rarely appearing when a beastie's relationship was changing to no longer be sweethearts. Okay, dialogue stuff. Layering issues with Riley's dad. Okay. Damage previews now account for power bonuses triggered by predicted movement. I'm not sure exactly what that means. It might be to do with things like Blitzswift using Spike on momentum sets. I'm not sure. That's hard to read. Extra safety checks preventing opening the main menu in the same frame as the sports match begins, because there were some crimes being done. This does patch out a couple glitches that were not really all that viable for speedruns. Fix for a certain gene interaction if you only have 2 beasties. Like extra conditions for getting the recruit tracker from Soul. Okay. We'll be looking at that later when I do some recruit at all. Ranking going down in some cutscenes of playing through the game in an unusual route. Example, qualifying for the Crown Series with minimal story interaction. Okay. We'll see what that... I guess we probably won't see what that means, but that'll be good. Ranking should not really go down if you're winning matches. Small extra scene variations for some unusual routes. Example, qualifying for the Crown Series with minimal story interaction. We'll be seeing that at speedruns, I'm sure. Wrong versus tracks playing. Plural text variations using singular text when there are 0 items. Okay. Just a whole bunch of bug fixes. Match replay controls not disabling when using overlays for active, such as feedback forms. Okay, that's a good change. Small errors in some art. A small bug with a combo. Visual issues with emotes. Visual issue previewing the ball volume when a ball item has self-play is highlighted like juggle. Okay. Couple new traits available for mods. Play effect that mods could access but would typically cause the game to crash. Okay, good stuff. Fixed a crash with modded stamina conditions on plays. Slight area adjustments for better clarity or spacing, and fixed various typos. And that's the patch. Overall, yeah, very excited about this. I am probably going to call the YouTube video here and explore stuff just on my own time for stream and let everyone explore the rest of the patch on their own, who is watching this on YouTube, of course. So thank you for watching. Sorry I yapped for so long. This always happens. There's a lot to talk about. I'm so excited about this patch. Lots of good balance changes for PvP. I have a lot of speedrunning to do. This always happens, but now it's more true than ever because our routes are genuinely really changing in a way that they haven't particularly done in about 1.5 years. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you all for watching. If you want more Beastieball content, usually speedruns, sometimes some PvP, you can subscribe and also follow me over on Twitch at Hallow to catch me whenever I'm live. Overall, hope you have a wonderful rest of your time zone.